Alright, allow me to make this piece short as I make it simple yet effective, describing words that cannot be used in correlation with the Blues right now. Carlton lost by 17 points on the weekend. In the third quarter, they were outscored by 29. In the third, Collingwood won contested possessions by 12, had 10 more inside 50s, 8 more clearances, all of which were either dominated by or equalised by Carlton in the first half, and they scored on 59% of their entries. Most importantly, dictating all of these stats aforementioned, Carlton had 34 less disposals and had 33% less time in possession of the ball, a drastic difference. This hinges on Carlton's midfield. In Carlton's midfield, their key players, their best players, their leaders apparently. Carlton were compressed into one half of the ground. Their backline was congested, resulting in dump kicks again. Collingwood were waiting like kids on Christmas morning for a gift in being able to send it back into the danger zone. And so, you have a drastic upscaling of scoring from turnover as well. What originally was going to be a hit piece for Sam Docherty actually turned into something similar for all of our leaders, and this isn't to say Doc has left the firing line. Docherty 8, Hewitt 6, Akers 5, Cripps 4, Walsh 3, De Koning 3, Chera 2, accumulating to 31. And on the other side of things, Dacos squared 19, Cameron 8, Pendlebury 8, Sidebottom 8, Lipinski 6, Perryman 5, and Crisp 3, equating to 57. This, my dear friends, is the disposal accumulation from both midfield groups in the third quarter. I didn't think it was possible for Carlton to disadvantage themselves even more so, and the one part of the game they pride themselves off of, they got utterly smashed. And while Michael Voss is on the verge of getting lynched by the Carlton fan base if he hasn't already, he couldn't sum up the game more succinctly in the spirit of doing this week's analysis so effectively.
They were cleaner, they were tougher around the ball. You know, you saw it, I saw it. We fumbled, they didn't. They absorbed pressure, we didn't. It's pretty clear.
And when Vossi says,
We'll look at that pretty closely. Won't be missed. Tell you that.
This is the perfect setup for how I plan on approaching this week's analysis. Let's get stuck in. When Voss mentions absorbing pressure, I interpret that as simply not fumbling on first possessions and ground ball gets, as well as the ability to withstand tacklers, remain standing, yet still you're able to dispose effectively. A lack thereof means less time, less space, and with that, less efficiency and less territory. I know everyone feels sorry for Paddy Cripps, but in the third, he was a fair part of the problem. Early in the third, after Lockie Schultz misses, the ball spills out to Paddy Cripps in an uncharacteristically time-friendly situation. He fumbles it and it re-enters a zone of traffic. After a centre bounce, a clean collection could send a blue off to the races. An absorption of tackling pressure could free up a second. Instead, it's a hacked kick off the deck to the benefit of the opposition. On this example, I can understand the indecision and the outcome of this situation due to yet again a lack of spacing around the ball and Cameron's strong tackling, but we really needed Cripper to be better in a situation like this. There's a 3v1 on this side of the contest and that pressure needed to be absorbed to unlock that advantage. The minute Collingwood win possession of that ball, it gets spewed out to the other side, more beneficial for an attacking side due to its corridor nature, and in Collingwood's case, it's where they have more numbers. The forward 50 entry, while fortuitous for Collingwood in the way they scored, still results in a score. And on this example, we need Cripps to try evade, open up the corridor with a little sidestep, probably needed a little assistance from Walsh to dip back inside, but that slight fumble seals how far he can travel with ball in hand, affects the quality of hand pass, and that has more meeting Walsh as the ball is received and it goes out of bounds. I think this compromises a player like Docherty and ensures his deficiencies are glaring. This isn't necessarily limited to the third quarter either. Wingers are naturally good kickers for the most part, at least I believe so. love getting into the wide areas, and for the record, I felt Doherty wasn't actually awful at distributing the ball, but he's not an elite kick, and he's lost that extra yard of pace, nor does he have that natural class. While I don't think he's helping himself with the positioning on the back of stoppage, a lack of handball quality is starving him of valuable moments to dispose of the ball as cleanly and efficiently as he can. Now the halfbacks pushing up are getting marked at stoppages, meaning the wingers are getting hemmed in, and his deficiencies are much more highlighted. Equally, playing back half footy deep in your back 50 because of this lackluster stoppage work is about as disabling for your wingers as you can get. Carlton have a very similar wing situation on the other side of the ground, and I feel like Blake Acres is suffering from components of this Doherty dilemma as well. You've got Lewis Young and Adam Chera here suffering from a similar case of the fumbles. Cooper Lord actually finds the ball in space, and so the fumble is costly, with George Hewitt the next in line to help Carlton advance forward, yet he's not going to be subjected to being utilised. Let's look at it from the perspective of the opposing camp in the same quarter. From the word go in the third, we're seeing immediacy with cleanliness at the contest, and it's allowing for territory gains and score launches to occur. It continues with the next centre bounce, and the cleanliness spreads Carlton's personnel as Daicos gestures towards accessing the perimeter, only for numbers to disperse from the epicentre, meaning Daicos can attack right through the middle. That's forcing Carlton's defensive line to commit, meaning Collingwood's numbers can leak out and dispose effectively. Doherty and Hollands justifiably deserve criticism for not neutralising the contest, but Sards had to peel off because of these midfield shenanigans, meaning the one who will end up with the most momentum leading up at the footy is Lachie Schultz, who of course takes the mark at the end of it all. And Daicos was a class above in this third quarter for cleanliness, as you have seen. Collingwood's cleanliness also helped them benefit on turnover. Collingwood initially have the outnumber at the fall of the ball, and without a fumble, they can maximise the spaces they'll get with Carlton's defence unset and scrambling, who are trying to offset the disadvantage that they have. It means Collingwood will be able to access a space that has them with the numbers, and additionally has a lot of real estate to work with. Space that endorses another clean gather and a conversion on top of all that. On this example, you'll see the clean pickups again at the ankles, opening up the game, and the final pickup by Tim Membry is exquisite. Unfortunate to not collect a goal from this sequence. On this transition, composure in a foam box type situation allows for the perimeter to be attacked again, and Collingwood look at ease and rarely frazzled. What follows is fairly unfortunate, but the dynamic is at play again. You actually see what change creates when Carlton possesses cleanly. This is a great handball by Young, and now Carlton can attack the outskirts. Schultz does well to mark Williams, otherwise this is a brilliant breakaway, which wouldn't have suffered from such a shallow entry, as we see here. Similarly, here, we've got a prime example of taking possession cleanly, absorbing the pressure, and then that frees options up, and allows them to be less under pressure. Then these guys can attack space, absorb less Collingwood pressure, and they can remain more composed. Numbers up the front can free up if you can absorb successfully, and maybe an extra handball would have helped Carlton here for a stronger outcome, but this is showing a case of that winger defensive side at the stoppage having an impact, despite not necessarily being equipped with pace or quality on a kick, simply due to a clean first take. Carlton needed their best players to step up. It was pretty damning, not only the return Carlton got in that moment, but also how significantly the opposition in Collingwood trumped the Blues in this exact facet of the game, knowing their best players needed to show a similar response after half-time. You want a reason for the statistical domination? Everything is a domino effect, right? Carlton couldn't get handball chains together. Carlton couldn't get any control about their game. With Collingwood, well, it was the flip side. As I mentioned, this wasn't particularly isolated to just the third quarter. There's examples littered all throughout the game of this exact problem before and after. And on the other side of the ledger, there's exactly what the solution looks like. If Carlton are going to pride themselves on being a contested team, the recurring issue of fumbling like this, it's just not going to happen. Like, at that point, you don't have anything resemblant of a football team at all. Let's hear your thoughts. I mean, where are our heads at? Because even I'm feeling dejected at this point. We'll see you next week for another analysis as I long for a win. But until then, stay safe and chat to you soon. Bye for now.